Hello, everyone, and welcome to our English Learning Podcast. My name is Alex, and I'm so glad you're here with us today.
And I'm Emma. We're really excited about this episode because we're going to talk about something that can completely change the way you speak English. Today's topic is how to train your brain to think in English.
This is such a powerful skill, and honestly, it's something every learner dreams about. Imagine being able to speak English without constantly translating in your head. Imagine just thinking of something and saying it right away, smoothly and confidently. That's what we want to help you achieve.
Yes, and we know that many of you listening right now feel frustrated because you already study hard, you know a lot of words, you understand grammar, but when it's time to speak, something slows you down. You feel like there's a delay, and that delay happens because your brain is thinking in your first language first, then translating into English, and then finally speaking.
Exactly. And that whole process takes energy, time, and confidence. By the time you've translated, the conversation has already moved forward, and you're left behind. That's why you sometimes feel stuck, shy, or even nervous about speaking. But the truth is, this doesn't mean your English is bad. It just means your brain is working in translation mode instead of English mode.
And here's the really good news. You can change that. Your brain is flexible, and with the right techniques, you can train your brain to think directly in English. You can create new habits so that English becomes the first language your mind uses when you want to express yourself.
That's right. Think about it this way. Your brain is like a city filled with roads. Right now, the fastest, busiest highway is your native language because you've been using it since you were a child. English, on the other hand, is like a smaller road that doesn't get much traffic yet. What we want to do is practice using that smaller road again and again until it becomes a main highway too.
I love that example. And it's so important to remember that this doesn't happen overnight. Just like building a new road, it takes time, effort, and consistency. But the exciting part is that you'll start noticing progress quickly if you practice the right way.
Now, before we get into the exercises and strategies, let's first talk about why your brain translates in the first place. Because once you understand why it happens, you'll be much more patient with yourself, and you'll see the logic behind the training we're about to share.
So why do we translate? The answer is simple. Our brains love shortcuts. They always look for the fastest way to reach meaning. Since your first language is already fully developed in your mind, your brain naturally goes there first. That's the easy route. It thinks, oh, I know this idea in my language. Let's just translate it into English.
But of course, that shortcut actually makes speaking English harder, because languages don't always match word for word. The grammar is different. The word order is different. Even the way we express ideas is different. So when you try to translate directly, it often sounds unnatural, or it takes too long to find the right words.
Yes, and I think many learners listening right now can relate to this. For example, maybe in your language you say something like, I have hunger, but in English we say, I am hungry. If you translate directly, you'll always sound a little bit off. But if you think in English, you'll use the correct expression naturally.
That's why training your brain is so powerful. When you stop depending on translation, you start to feel free. You're no longer trapped by the structure of your own language. You're able to use English the way English is meant to be used, and that gives you confidence.
And confidence is everything in speaking. Fluency isn't about knowing a million words. It's about being able to use the words you do know smoothly without hesitation. And that's what happens when your brain thinks in English. You speak faster, you understand faster, and you don't feel stuck.
Now, here's something very important. Thinking in English does not mean speaking perfect English. Many learners think, I need advanced grammar before I can start thinking in English. But that's not true. You can start right now with whatever English you already know. Even simple sentences are enough.
That's true. Let's give a small example. Imagine you're at home and you see your notebook. Instead of thinking in your language and then translating, just tell yourself in English, "This is my notebook. My notebook is blue. I write in my notebook every day." It doesn't need to be complex. The point is you're training your brain to use English as the first response.
And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. At first, it will feel a little strange, almost like talking to yourself. But don't worry, that's completely normal. You're not just saying sentences, you're creating new connections in your brain.
Yes, and it's not only about speaking, it's also about listening. When you hear English, try not to translate it back into your own language. Instead, connect the English words directly to meaning. For example, if someone says, "It's raining outside," don't translate it into your language. Just picture the rain in your mind. That way, English is connected to ideas, not translations.
That's such a powerful technique. Every time you make that direct connection, you're strengthening the English road in your brain. And with enough repetition, your brain learns, I don't need my first language here. I can process this directly in English.
And this is the moment when English starts to feel natural. You don't even realize you're thinking in English. You just do it. And honestly, that's the real secret to fluency. It's not about perfection. It's about habits, repetition, and practice.
So the foundation we want to build today is this. Understand why your brain translates, accept that it's normal, and realize that you can train yourself out of it. Once you know this, you're ready to start practicing daily techniques that actually push your brain into English mode.
Yes, and in a moment, we're going to share some very practical methods you can try. These are things you can start doing today, no matter where you are, and they don't require special materials or teachers. They just require consistency and the willingness to practice.
Because the truth is, your brain will only change if you give it new habits, and those habits can be simple, fun, and part of your daily life. Which brings us to the practical part of our discussion. We've talked about why your brain translates and why it slows you down, but now let's focus on what you can actually do to change that. Because it's not enough to just understand the problem. You need real strategies to train your brain to think in English.
Yes, and what's great about these strategies is that they're simple and you can practice them in your daily life. You don't need a classroom, you don't need expensive courses, and you don't need to live in an English-speaking country. All you need is commitment and a little creativity.
Exactly. So let's start with the first strategy, self-talk in English. This is one of the most powerful exercises, and it's something you can do anytime, anywhere. Basically, you talk to yourself in English about what you're doing, what you're feeling, or what you're thinking.
Right. And let's give an example. Suppose you're in the kitchen making tea. Instead of just doing it silently, you narrate it in English. I am boiling water. I am adding sugar. The tea smells good. I'm going to drink it soon. It may sound simple, but this exercise forces your brain to produce English without translation.
Yes, and I know some listeners might think, but isn't it strange to talk to myself? Trust me, it's not. In fact, we all talk to ourselves in our heads anyway. The only difference is that now you're doing it consciously in English, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
And here's a tip. Start with short, easy sentences. Don't pressure yourself to make perfect grammar or long sentences. Even simple statements like, I'm hungry, I want to eat, the food looks delicious, are perfect. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to get your brain used to thinking in English.
That's such an important reminder. Many learners make the mistake of waiting until their English is good enough before they start this. But the truth is, you can start self-talk with the English you already know. Even beginner-level English works. The key is consistency.
Exactly. Now, let's move to the second strategy. Describe what you see. This is similar to self-talk, but instead of talking about what you're doing, you talk about your environment. Look around you and describe things in English. For example, if you're on a bus, you can say in your head, The bus is crowded. A man is standing near the door. The driver is driving carefully.
Yes, and what's powerful about this is that you're training your brain to connect English directly to the world around you. You're not thinking in your native language first, you're going straight from observation to English words.
That's right. And you can make it a game. For example, give yourself a challenge. Describe 5 objects you see in English before you leave the room. Or when you're walking outside, pick one thing, like the weather, and describe it in different ways. It's sunny. The sun is bright. The sky is clear.
And once again, don't worry about advanced vocabulary. Even simple words are powerful when used directly in English. The goal is to strengthen that connection between thought and English expression.
Yes, and that's why immersion is such a powerful technique. People often think immersion only happens when you live in an English-speaking country, but that's not true. You can create an English environment right where you are, even if everyone around you speaks another language.
Exactly. Think about it this way. Language is input and output. The more English input you give your brain, the easier it becomes for your brain to produce English output. So let's talk about some simple, practical ways you can surround yourself with English every day.
The first one is listening to English daily. And I don't mean just studying from a textbook or listening to boring lessons. I mean listening to real, natural English as much as possible. That could be podcasts like this one, YouTube videos, English music, or even movies and TV shows.
Yes, and here's the key. Don't treat listening as just background noise. Try to actively pay attention. For example, if you're watching a TV show, don't just watch it for the story. Focus on the words, the expressions, the way the characters talk. Pause and repeat if needed.
And here's another tip. Try to balance between easy content and challenging content. If it's too easy, you won't learn much. If it's too hard, you'll get frustrated. The best material is something you mostly understand, but still has new words or phrases that push your brain to grow.
That's so true. And one way to make listening even more powerful is to combine it with reading. For example, watch a show with English subtitles. That way, you're hearing the sounds and seeing the words at the same time. This double input strengthens the connection in your brain.
Exactly. And if you enjoy reading, try to replace some of your reading material with English. Instead of scrolling through social media in your own language, follow English pages or read English articles. Instead of reading a book in translation, try the English version.
And don't forget small changes too. You can change your phone settings to English, your computer language to English, even your apps like Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. At first, it might feel a little confusing, but that's the point. You're forcing your brain to adapt.
Yes, and that's exactly what immersion is. It's about surrounding yourself with English so much that your brain doesn't have a choice but to use it. Even simple things like writing your grocery list in English or setting reminders on your phone in English all add up.
Another powerful technique is to connect your hobbies with English. For example, if you love cooking, watch English recipe videos. If you love sports, follow English commentary. If you love technology, read tech news in English. This way, English isn't just a subject, it becomes part of the things you already enjoy.
Yes, and that makes practice fun, which is so important. If your only connection to English is studying grammar rules, you'll get bored quickly. But if English is linked to your passions, you'll spend more time with it naturally.
Exactly. And I want to share a practical challenge for our listeners. For 1 week, try to live as much of your daily life in English as possible. For example, listen to English while you commute. Write your daily to-do list in English. Watch one English video every evening. Change at least one app on your phone to English.
That's a great challenge, and after 1 week, you'll notice something amazing. Your brain will start reaching for English words more quickly. Because it's seeing and hearing them every day, English starts to feel more natural, less foreign.
And let's not forget about speaking practice. Of course, immersion is not only about input, it's also about output. If you can find someone to practice with, even just a friend who's also learning English, that's perfect. You don't need a native speaker to practice. You just need someone who will let you speak and make mistakes without judgment.
Yes, but even if you can't find a partner, you still have options. You can use language exchange apps, online communities, or even practice speaking to yourself, as we mentioned earlier. The important thing is that you create moments where English is the only option.
That's so important. Creating situations where translation is not possible. For example, if you're in an online English-only group, you have no choice but to communicate in English. That kind of environment forces your brain to adapt much faster.
Exactly. And you can even create mini immersion moments in your own home. For example, dedicate 30 minutes each day to an English-only zone. During that time, everything you say, write, or think should be in English. It might sound small, but daily practice like this creates powerful habits.
Yes, because fluency is built on habit. The more often you practice using English in real situations, the more your brain will start to treat it as normal. And when English feels normal, thinking in English becomes automatic.
I think this is the part many learners miss. They study grammar and vocabulary, but they never create an environment for English to actually live in their daily life. Without that environment, the brain never makes the full switch.
Exactly. And I want our listeners to understand this. Immersion doesn't mean studying harder. It means living smarter. It's about surrounding yourself with English so much that your brain starts to prefer it.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You don't need to spend all day with English. Even small, consistent steps make a difference. 10 minutes of focused English listening daily is better than 2 hours once a week.
Consistency really is the secret. Think about it like exercise. If you go to the gym once a month, you won't see results. But if you do a little exercise every day, even just 15 minutes, your body gets stronger. The same is true for your brain with English.
That's a perfect comparison. And the best part is, once you create this English environment, it starts to feel easier and even enjoyable. Your brain gets used to it, and English becomes part of who you are, not just a school subject.
And that's the ultimate goal. Not just to learn English, but to live with English. Because when you live with it, your brain doesn't need translation anymore. It just thinks, reacts, and speaks naturally.
So, to sum up, creating an English environment means listening to English daily, reading and watching content in English, changing your phone or apps into English, connecting your hobbies with English, practicing in English-only spaces. If you combine these habits with the thinking exercises we talked about earlier, you'll see a big transformation in how your brain works with English.
Yes, and that transformation is what makes fluency possible. But there's still one more piece we need to talk about, your mindset. Because even if you practice daily and immerse yourself in English, your progress can still be slowed down by fear, self-doubt, or lack of confidence.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. Because mindset can either open the door to fluency or completely block your progress. You can have the best study plan, the best immersion environment, and all the right tools. But if your mindset is negative, if you're always scared of making mistakes or too hard on yourself, you'll never feel comfortable thinking and speaking in English.
That's so true. I've seen many learners who actually know a lot of English, but they freeze when it's time to speak. Why? Because they're afraid of being judged, of making errors, or of sounding less intelligent. And that fear keeps them stuck in translation mode.
Exactly. Fear is like a wall between your thoughts and your words. The good news is fear is not permanent. It's something you can change with the right mindset. And that's what we want to talk about now. How to build confidence so your brain feels safe and free to think in English.
Let's start with the most important point. Mistakes are not failures, they're teachers. When you make a mistake in English, it doesn't mean you're bad at English. It simply means your brain is learning. Think about how children learn to speak their first language. They make countless mistakes, but nobody stops them. Instead, they learn through those mistakes.
Yes, and yet many adult learners expect perfection. They feel embarrassed if they use the wrong word or grammar. But here's the truth. No one cares about your mistakes as much as you do. Most native speakers don't even notice small errors. What they notice is your effort to communicate.
That's right, and here's something powerful to remember. Fluency is about communication, not perfection. You don't need perfect grammar to be fluent. You need confidence to express your thoughts clearly, even if there are small errors.
Exactly. And confidence is not something you magically wake up one day. It's something you build step by step. The first step is changing the way you talk to yourself about English. Instead of saying, I'm bad at English, say, I'm improving every day. Instead of, I always make mistakes, say, mistakes are helping me learn.
Yes, self-talk is so important. If your inner voice is negative, your brain will resist English. But if your inner voice is encouraging, your brain feels safe to take risks, and that's when growth happens.
And here's another mindset shift. Focus on progress, not perfection. Many learners only see what they can't do. They say, I can't speak like a native. I can't understand movies. I can't write perfectly. But they forget to notice their progress, the new words they've learned, the conversations they've had, the sentences they can now create easily.
Exactly. And when you focus on progress, even small wins, you stay motivated. For example, maybe yesterday you could only say, I go shop. But today you can say, I am going to the shop to buy milk. That's progress. Celebrate it.
Yes, and celebrating small progress builds confidence. And the more confident you feel, the easier it is for your brain to stay in English mode without running back to translation.
Now, let's talk about one of the biggest fears, speaking in front of others. Many learners are okay when they practice alone, but when they have to speak in real life, they get nervous. Their heart races, their mind goes blank, and suddenly they can't find the words.
Yes, it's almost like a switch flips in your brain. At first, you're always aware that you're practicing, you're studying, you're translating. But after consistent effort, suddenly you notice you're not thinking about English anymore. You're just using it. And that's when you realize you've crossed into a new level of fluency.
Exactly. And it feels so different. Instead of feeling nervous before a conversation, you start to feel curious or even excited. Instead of panicking when you don't know a word, you find another way to explain it. Instead of being shy, you feel like you're actually expressing yourself.
That's the identity shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone learning English and start seeing yourself as someone who communicates in English. That mindset changes everything, your confidence, your motivation, even the way you approach mistakes.
Yes, and it also creates momentum. Once you feel comfortable thinking and speaking in English, you naturally want to do it more. And the more you do it, the stronger your fluency becomes. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. It just keeps getting bigger and faster.
Now, let's talk about some of the advanced techniques that help strengthen this transformation stage. Because once you've built the habit of thinking in English, you can start taking your skills to the next level.
The first advanced technique is storytelling. This is one of the most powerful ways to practice thinking in English because stories engage your imagination, your memory, and your creativity all at once.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You can tell simple stories about your day. I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I went to work. But as you practice, you can expand into longer and more detailed stories, like explaining a funny event that happened, or sharing a memory from your childhood.
Exactly. And the beauty of storytelling is that it forces you to connect sentences and ideas, not just single words. That's what fluency is all about, creating a flow of thoughts in English without stopping to translate.
And here's a tip. If you don't know how to say something, don't stop the story. Use simple words or describe around the idea. For example, if you forget the word microwave, you can say, the machine that makes food hot quickly. That skill, finding another way to explain, is what true fluency looks like.
Yes, because fluency is not about knowing every word. It's about keeping communication alive. And storytelling is the perfect practice for that.
Another advanced technique is role play. This is when you imagine yourself in different situations and practice speaking as if you're there. For example, pretend you're ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or interviewing for a job.
Yes, and role play is powerful because it prepares you for real life. When you actually face those situations, you already feel comfortable because you've practiced them in your mind.
And you can make role play even more effective by combining it with writing. Write out the dialogue first, then practice speaking it.
That way you're training both your writing and speaking skills at the same time.
That's a great idea. And speaking of writing, another advanced technique is journaling in English. Keep a diary where you write your thoughts, feelings, and plans in English every day. It doesn't have to be long. Even a few sentences are powerful.
Yes, journaling builds your thinking muscles. It's like taking your internal monologue and putting it on paper. And when you look back after a few weeks or months, you'll see how much your English has improved.
And don't forget about creative practice. Things like writing short stories, making YouTube videos, or even posting on social media in English. When you use English to create something, you're not just practicing, you're owning the language.
Yes, and creativity makes learning fun. The more fun you have, the more motivated you are to keep going. And motivation is what carries you through the long journey of fluency.
Another advanced technique is thinking in different perspectives. For example, instead of just saying, I went to the park, try telling the story from the perspective of someone else, like, he went to the park, or they went to the park. This helps you practice grammar naturally and expand your flexibility in English.
That's a brilliant exercise. And you can even take it further by changing tenses. I go to the park, I went to the park, I will go to the park, I have been to the park. This strengthens your grammar without needing boring drills.
Exactly. And once your brain is comfortable switching perspectives and tenses in English, you'll feel much more confident in real conversations because you'll know you can handle different situations.
Now let's talk about something that surprises many learners. Fluency doesn't mean never pausing. Even native speakers pause, think, and hesitate sometimes. The difference is they use natural fillers like, well, actually, or let me think.
Yes, and learning to use these fillers makes your English sound more natural. So instead of freezing when you forget a word, you can say, let me think, or how do I say this? That way, the conversation keeps flowing and you don't feel stuck.
And that's part of the transformation. Realizing that fluency doesn't mean being perfect or speaking like a machine. Fluency means being natural, being flexible, and communicating confidently.
Yes, and when you reach this stage, English stops feeling like a subject you're studying and starts feeling like a skill you own. It becomes part of your daily identity.
And that identity shift is so powerful. When you see yourself as a person who uses English, you stop doubting, you stop hesitating, and you start enjoying the process. That's the moment many learners dream about, the day they realize they're not just learning English, they're living in English. But to stay in that state, there's another important element we need to talk about: consistency and long-term habits. Because fluency is not something you achieve once and then forget about. It's like fitness. If you go to the gym for 3 months, you'll see results. But if you stop exercising completely, eventually those results will fade. The same goes for English. Once you train your brain to think in English, you need to maintain it through consistent habits.
That's such an important point. Many learners think fluency is a final destination, like, once I get there, I'm done. But in reality, fluency is more like a lifestyle. It's a daily habit, something you carry with you. The good news is maintaining it is much easier than building it from zero.
Yes, absolutely. Once you've broken the habit of translating and built the habit of thinking in English, it doesn't take hours of study to maintain it. You just need small, consistent actions that keep your brain active in English.
So let's break this down. What are some practical ways to build consistency in your English learning routine?
The first one is simple. Set a daily minimum. It doesn't have to be big, just something you can realistically do every single day. For example, you might decide, I will think in English for 5 minutes before bed, or I will write 3 sentences in my journal every morning.
Yes, and that daily minimum acts like a trigger. Even if you're busy, even if you don't have time for long practice sessions, you know you can always complete your minimum. And often, once you start, you end up doing more anyway.
Exactly. The key is consistency, not perfection. 5 minutes every day is more powerful than 2 hours once a week because your brain responds better to regular input.
The second way is to connect English to your daily life. For example, label objects in your room with sticky notes in English. When you look at your desk, You'll see notebook, pen, lamp. That visual connection reinforces vocabulary and reminds your brain to think in English.
That's a great trick. Another way is to narrate your daily actions. When you're cooking, say to yourself, I'm cutting vegetables, I'm boiling water, I'm adding salt. This simple habit trains your brain to describe life in English without needing a classroom.
And don't forget about environmental input. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Change the language on your phone to English. Watch movies or YouTube videos in English. Listen to podcasts while you commute or exercise. These small exposures build a natural environment where English feels normal.
Yes, and the best part is it doesn't feel like studying. It just becomes part of your lifestyle. Over time, your brain starts to prefer English in certain situations.
Now, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges with consistency. Because at the beginning, you feel excited, you want to practice, you're full of energy. But after a few weeks, that excitement can fade. How do we deal with that?
That's a very real problem. And the answer is you can't always rely on motivation. Instead, you need systems and habits. Motivation gets you started, but habits keep you going.
Yes, like brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every day feeling motivated to brush your teeth. You just do it because it's a habit. We want English practice to feel the same way.
One way to build that habit is by attaching English to an activity you already do. For example, I listen to an English podcast while I drink my morning coffee, or I write one English sentence every time I finish dinner. Linking English to an existing habit makes it easier to remember and harder to skip.
That's called habit stacking, and it works wonders. Another way is to keep your practice visible. If you want to read English books, keep one on your desk. If you want to journal, leave your notebook on your pillow. Visual reminders make it harder to ignore.
Yes, and don't underestimate the power of tracking your progress. For example, use a calendar and mark an X every day you practice English. After a few days, you'll see a chain of X's, and you won't want to break that chain.
That's brilliant. Humans are motivated by progress. When you can see that you've practiced for 10 days in a row, you feel proud and more determined to continue.
Now let's talk about long-term strategies, because consistency isn't just about today or this week. It's about staying connected to English for months and years.
One long-term strategy is setting milestones.